Hello, 3100. This is our final seminar, and there are two possible factors affecting this seminar. One, I have an IKEA delivery coming anywhere between 7 and 7, the forgiving 12-hour window that they give you. So I might be kind of dashing to answer that, and I'll insert a kind of a tactical cut in the video. And then two, they're pouring concrete out back. So we have two possible interruptions. But maybe that's apt for discussing our final topic of dystopia. So I weighed up starting the semester with dystopia or ending it with dystopia, and I kind of felt maybe we should start on a good note and end in a more cynical note. And I think given the kind of progress at the time of the filming of this video, which was at the end of 2020, that's fairly accurate kind of trajectory for the year. So we're going to end with dystopia, and another reason I kind of choose to end with it is that if you're a more optimistic person about the kind of intrusion of media into our lives, then you will draw on the theories that we've already covered to kind of offer counter arguments to this kind of particular view. So we might think of automation and transformations in our technological world as for the better, but there's another story here that is cropped up through the semester, that automation has biases that hide behind a guise of impartiality and progress. And today, I'm going to largely be drawing on the work of Mark Andreevich and his work in this area, particularly his book on automated media. And his arguments can be broken down into two major themes: desire and preemption and surveillance. And these are the two kind of overarching let's say, themes in his sort of dystopic view of contemporary media culture. So desire first. He talks about our age as being defined by a desire to know everything and by a fear of missing out. And this is expressed on apps that track our activity and the activities that affect us. For example, where our Lyft driver is at all points in time, where our friends are, where our Uber Eats meals are. Desire from a psychoanalytic point of view, kind of going back to the work of Sigmund Freud, has always been centered on a gap or hole that describes the division between our conscious and unconscious minds. So the idea of desire hinges on the kind of idea that we are not readily transparent to ourselves, or that part of ourselves is always hidden. So in today's culture, we try to fill that gap and kind of suture the gap between our conscious and unconscious self with information in order to fool ourselves that we know ourselves completely. So the illusion that we have complete information. This is the dream of automation. For example, Amazon predicts your desires before you know you have them. In the world of automated desire, chose my adjective wrong. He writes, we construct our experience around gaps and omissions. So in other words, the things that waste our time and the information that we don't want to see, the people that we unfollow, the feeds we unsubscribe to, the people we ghost, the politics we don't agree with. And we quickly delete these from our daily lives. So in the automated world, we turn away from certain information in order to fool ourselves into the illusion that we have a complete sense of information around us. And he subscribes the current consumer experience as being womb-like, eliminating surprises and reducing social interaction. So another expression of the desire for complete information is drone vision, the presence of the aerial view, more broadly speaking, in our media culture, that presents a view from, in his words, everywhere at once, and thus nowhere in particular. So it is not simply a view in the sense of visual data capture, but it's a sensory amalgam, the combination of whatever information sensors can collect. Images perhaps, but also sound, temperature, atmospheric pressure, mood of people, interaction patterns, traffic flow, wastewater flow, and more. The aerial view can describe literally an aerial view on your apps, like Uber Eats, but it can also describe the more all-encompassing logic behind digital platforms. In other words, this desire for complete information, this roaming eye and sensor, feeds our desire to know and see everything. And he says that our desire is to replicate reality in digital form in order to have a sense of control over it. He writes, the digital overlay will operate as a virtual mirror, reflecting the world back to itself in machine-readable form. So this digital overlay may be an AR filter that you use on Snapchat, or it may be the map you use to track your Domino's order. I'm very fixated on takeaway orders apparently, but living in the time of COVID, right? Makes sense. But whatever it is, this digital overlay is meant to offer you the illusion of complete information. He writes, the fantasy of automation is that in the breadth of its reach and the ambition of its scope, it can approach the post-subjective perspective of the view from everywhere or nowhere, the purely objective representation that leaves nothing out. So what he's saying here is that this fantasy denies a basic element of being a person, which is that our perspectives are always partial and biased and fragmented. And this is the danger of these digital desires for complete knowledge, is that they disavow this fundamental part of being a smart human being. It is also a fruitless, the desire for complete information is also a fruitless endeavor, since one cannot know everything, and we are constantly frustrated and overwhelmed by the world as a result. Another word he uses for this idea of complete information is framelessness, that our sense or access to information is never bounded by any limitations like a frame. We want this world where we can constantly zoom out and zoom in on information endlessly. The automated person is meant to be fully profiled and predictable, fully known to the system, where their actions can be anticipated in advance. So Tinder profiles that show you exactly whom you're looking for, if they're operating well. Our Facebook profiles capturing the authentic or our real selves. And surely there's a great deal of anxiety when these apps do not fulfill their function of giving us complete information. And this is the kind of the fear of catfishing in dating apps, or the fear that you might be heading into a possible sort of sexual assault in dating apps for women in particular. So when these apps, we have anxiety and fear when they fail to fulfill their perceived purpose, which is to be completely transparent with regard to the people they are representing. So the digital copy of the person is totally commensurate with the real copy, or the real kind of version. So the well-functioning automated system gives us complete and accurate information all the time. Part of the world of automation is a desire to overcome language or bypass our mouths and feed information directly into our brains without the bother of trying to communicate with people. So automation is anti-language almost. This includes bypassing information that is subjective. It's part of this fetishization of complete information. In the same breath, the fetishization of complete information is exactly what supports people buying into conspiracy theories. So the kind of idea behind conspiracy theories that the information, the viewpoints and information of what happened are incomplete, and the person propounding the conspiracy theories filling that gap and providing complete information and opening everyone's sort of view up to the real truth is kind of a part of this culture of the kind of desire for complete information. So this bypassing of language and critical thinking reveals a desire in us that we make ourselves fully transparent to ourselves and others. And this is reflected in self-help literature that helps us to know ourselves, or our privileging of terms like authentic or relatable to online performances of self. The attempt to render all language fully transparent without the inconsistencies, slips, and hidden meanings that recall the domain of the unconscious is paradigmatic of operationalization. It is the imperative of a machine language purged of ambiguities, inconsistencies, and the potential for misdirection. In other words, the truth is messy, fragmented, and partial, and communication is difficult, and it's a struggle. It's a battle we must engage with, not turn away from. And yet all we want to do is take selfies with hashtags and no filter, like no filter, in some sort of fruitless effort to make ourselves believe we're our authentic selves online. So that's the kind of very dystopic idea of desire, that we're kind of driven by this desire for complete information that is completely impossible and that is counterintuitive to the act of critical thinking in and of itself, is that one can never possess complete information, and one shouldn't think that you can in sort of a real critical thinking model. Your awareness should always be geared towards the truth being subjective and relative, and it should be sort of weighing different forms of evidence in order to kind of deliver the best sort of explanation possible, or the best argument possible. That is what critical thinking would be, according to some definitions. In this automated world where Amazon sort of hand feeds your likes to you, is bypassing or eliding the process of actually finding things yourself on the internet and weighing one website against the other, and weighing kind of consumer reviews one against the other. So it's a pretty bleak idea of the people that we're becoming. That we're becoming kind of more stupid in this process of automation, and more lazy, and that we can't be bothered to kind of weigh different pieces of information anymore or find things for ourselves. Is that we want to be hand-fed our truths and assured that there's some sort of digital copy of ourselves that is fully transparent and disavows the existence of a subconscious or unconscious, that all parts of ourselves are splayed open online for sort of people's access, and there are no secrets or hidden truths or parts of ourselves that we hide from our digital representations online. And these sort of representations elude the kind of need to communicate with people. So if you think of dating apps like Tinder and how it's so image sort of based and driven, it's a way of just not really kind of having a full profile and not communicating with people in order to see if they're a match. It's easy to swipe right or left based on images that are, anti-language, that are not really based in any form of authentic communication. So I think that's what Andreevich would say about that. Next, we'll be covering preemption.